Certainly thanks to, like, 24 and various other, terrorist themed entertainments, people have this notion of the ticking time bomb as being a justification. I mean, 24 could be, viewed, and I think it is viewed by its producer as being a show which justifies torture.
Oh, are you kidding? There's no doubt about it. That show, I think part of its purpose in the world is to justify torture or just these ideas of a military response to every problem and things like collective punishment and just the sort of morality that Rupert Murdoch wants to see propagated in the U.S. and the world.
Right.
That show, I mean, I can't say too much because I haven't actually watched the show, but I know that it's absolutely a show that's centered around the whole idea that sometimes in those dramatic ticking time bomb moments at the end of every episode, torture is necessary, as is murder and violence and all those things that make a television show great.
And I think that's one thing, and I think a lot of people buy into that. Some people buy into the sort of legal fig leaf that, like, John Woo had, the whole notion that, we have this definitional standard which excludes what we're doing and makes it okay. So, it may, the whole notion that, something can look like a duck, quack like a duck, swim like a duck, and fly like a duck, but not be a duck. Because John Woo says it isn't a duck.
Well, it's like, Pink Floyd said it a long time ago, us and them. There's us, and there's them. If it's us, it's justifiable, God is on our side, man.
Truly, and that's probably also kind of ties in with the last justification that I think some people have, and you have to be honest about this. I mean, there are people who honestly believe in retribution, and who feel like that this is an appropriate punishment. I remember seeing this bumper sticker on a car, and I remember seeing it and just not believing that I was seeing this, but the person who ever had that car represented, I think, a significant group of people. The bumper sticker said, "I heart Guantanamo. Lock the fuckers up." And that comes from a really vengeful, angry mindset. Probably a lot of the people who view the conflict between us and the Muslim world through the prism of, a titanic struggle between good and evil for the soul of the world.
The soul of the world.
Yeah, those are people who I think will buy into torture.
Well, those are definitely people who will buy into torture. I have no problem believing that, but I mean, how many of us are there that really think that it's how can they convince us that it's such a clearly defined struggle between good and evil and that we're on the good side?
Well, but all the information comes that way. I mean, this is another point I like to make, is I think that we do live in a bubble. I think there are people who can make a good faith attempt to be well informed and not know shit. Honestly speaking, I think you can work hard. You can read a couple of papers, watch some news on television, check a couple of internet sites, and know nothing, and feel like you've gotten some insight and that you're well informed.
Well, and I tell you, watching some news, reading some stuff on the internet, and really taking the time to look for a good source of what's true and what's not, that shit takes so much time. Nobody has that much time.
It is, and once again, it has to do with the media's sorting function, because right now, we're in this paradigm where you're constantly being told, by the media, well, they say this and they say that, you decide. And it was all part of something which I think really, once again, something that fires up really big during the Reagan administration. The whole sense that reporting the news is somehow liberal bias. Um, because I think, not to put too fine a point on it, but I mean, I think that Stephen Colbert might have been right when he joked next to Bush that the truth has a strong liberal bias, and that this whole idea of the media being something which helps us to understand our world as opposed to just kind of randomly dumping factoids on us and telling us to sort it out for ourselves is actually a fairly new thing. I mean, I like it. I think professional journalism is actually part of the problem. I mean, I think everybody should be opinionated like Fox News. I mean, I think Democracy Now! is fairly opinionated. I mean, they try to deal with people in an even-handed manner, but I think it's fairly clear that there's a liberal slash socialist progressive bias to it with a fair measure of tolerance for like other ideas. But I think that's healthy. I think that's a lot healthier than having reporters who feel like they have to show each side to be equal to the other when they know they're not.
I really agree with that. I mean, just a little bit of intellectual honesty is necessary. I mean, just because there are two sides, you can find a source to represent two sides of a story, but if you know what the story is, then it's irresponsible not to tell that story.
Exactly. And I think that, once again, you're running afoul of the business model. Because much in the same way that the current business model for what's laughingly referred to as healthcare has nothing to do with caring for people's health and trying to keep them to stay healthy, I think our current, media has absolutely nothing to do with getting essential civic information to people so that they can be informed citizens of the Republic and make intelligent decisions. That's not what this model will produce. The model that we have right now does and will continue to produce the most tepid, mindless, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Market tested garbage that they can get away with. They want to produce content as cheaply as humanly possible. They want to make sure that the content has nothing to offend anyone, especially the advertisers. And as long as you have that kind of a model, as long as those are the priorities of the economic system that is delivering your, quote, news, unquote, your news is going to be garbage. And then when you throw on top of that, the additional stricture that not only can you not offend the advertisers, but you have to show all propositions as being a conflict between equals, whether they are or not, there's no way that could produce anything but dreck. It's systemically incapable of producing anything but dreck.
Yeah, I actually totally agree that that a huge problem in the media is trying to produce content as cheaply as possible. I mean, apart from the fact that there's a really limited amount of time and a lot of news programs, like especially the morning news programs that I used to have to watch every day as part of my job. Half the content is let's talk about the movie that our parent company made, or let's talk about the product that our parent company sells.
Oh yeah, vertical integration is a huge deal. I mean, most people don't understand.
Synergy. Synergy is the word for it.
Yeah, I mean the power of these corporations is just mind-boggling. I mean, they're total titans on the political landscape, on the intellectual landscape, and I guess I should say the anti-intellectual landscape.